I'm telling you, this man, Robert Pattinson, is so traumatized by his Twilight run that he's taken an oath to outperform in every role he is cast in subsequent movies. Mickey 17 is an uncommon Judwa category sci fi film that does not hit as hard as Parasite, but it's still a true blue Bong Joon Ho movie, and here's why you should watch it. A lot of us are not really concerned about directors as much as we are concerned about the actors who are cast in the movie. And that's okay because we walk into theaters to have a good time, and it's not a mandatory step before a 1,000 word essay or something. But this time, I would say it would help you to understand the movie better if you know the director's go to topics. Bong Joon Ho is from South Korea and they have a massive class divide. And we sitting in India understand what that is. That's one. The next thing is that he mixes genres. So, in case you find yourself wondering why you are laughing at one point and the next point you are like feeling all grossed out, well, it's intentional. This is what he does. Keep these two in mind, and you will not come out of the theater feeling all confused about your reaction to the movie. Moving on. Mickey, played by Pattinson, is a regular guy on Earth entangled in a very regular Earth problem. He is unable to repay the money he has taken from some loan sharks, and now they want to kill him. Chances are through very torturous methods. Mickey makes a run for it right into outer space. We are not told what the immediate reason is. Is it an environmental problem or a looming war? But there is a colony program going on. It aims to establish a human settlement on a different planet. A lot of people want to leave Earth, and one can think of innumerable reasons why they would want to do so, but it's really difficult to get on the spaceship. The easiest way for Mickey to do so was to sign up as an expendable. Okay, we should take this as a cautionary tale because Mickey didn't read the fine print.
You're applying to be an expendable?
Yeah.
You read through the whole application.
Ain't that a kick in the head? Yeah, I should have read through it.
And he is onboarded as a human guinea pig who will be experimented on repeatedly. Now, these are not pop a pill, check for rashes sort of experiments. These are proper janleva processes that end in death in excruciating conditions. The upside, just like A4 papers, his body gets printed out every time he dies, and these printout bodies are complete with memories of all the previous versions of Mickey. So basically, reproducing the same exact person every time the existing version dies. The problem arises when it is assumed that Mickey 17 or the 17th version of Mickey is dead and they print out the 18th version of Mickey. This leads to a situation where two versions of Mickeys are existing at the same time, which is a big legal no no and could result in the extinction of all Mickeys. No more reprinting. The question, therefore, is which of the two Mickeys, 17 or 18, makes it to the end? Staying true to Bong Joon movies, the most in your face theme explored is that of the class divide. Marshall, the failed politician heading this colony program, and his wife are right at the top of this ladder, and they live in this opulent little bubble of theirs where there is no shortage of anything. In contrast, there is Mickey, who represents the lowest rung within the ecosystem of the spaceship. His entire existence is on a tight budget, including his housing, his clothes, the number of calories he intakes. He is not even considered a proper human being worthy of any dignity in life. He is an object to experiment on, and his deaths are failed experiments, not murders. Between the topmost rung and rock bottom, there are more layers of class. Nasha, an elite agent and a key character in the movie, belongs to one of these middle classes. The scientists, marshals, chelas, and chamchas, they would also go somewhere in these layers. But wait, let's stretch this class spectrum a little more. If an expendable is the lowest one can get within the spaceship, there is a whole category outside the spaceship who are not even considered sentient beings. They are straight up seen as savages and pests worthy of extermination. What does that remind us of? Yes, imperialism and colonialism. The movie is not very layered, and the innuendos are quite straightforward in most of the dialogues that Marshall says. He's quite open about his desire to establish an ethically pure white colony, and he's very quick to name the native creatures of the alien planet creepers because they creep him out. There are quite a few themes other than the class divide that are touched upon but not properly explored, such as the legitimacy of human experimentation or the exploitation of people by corporations for profit, pointing a finger at companies that suck their employees dry and are very ready to replace them with someone with identical credentials. Sad, sad. Then there's the question is what is sex for, pleasure or procreation? And then there's the common theme of greed, which we see in a lot of movies, conveyed through Ilfa's obsession with food or sauce, to be accurate. These are the ones I could think of at the moment. Robert Pattinson is my favorite Hollywood weirdo, I swear. He has tremendous range, and I think he gets a kick out of picking the most unconventional, weird, strange roles. Mickey is the latest, and he has absolutely crushed it. It's a dual role, and both the Mickeys are starkly different. One is a meek pushover, and the other is a hardened bully. When both of them are on screen at the same time, you know one is itching to kill the other, and the other is terrified of being killed.
I don't like you.
But I'm you.
I'm not you. I'm gonna kill you.
Tell me quick.
Their energies bounce off each other and seamlessly create palpable tension. The best part? You forget that there's just one actor in the studio pretending that he's battling with someone who is himself and filling the void with his imagination. And if you like his physical acting, you will be even more impressed with his narration. His mumbly voice, which lacks confidence, matches 17's physicality perfectly, just like that one over the counter foundation you bought, and it matches your skin tone so much better than the foundation from Chanel. Just saying. Mark Ruffalo, on the other hand, looks like he's taking the role lightly. We know Marshall is a parody of Donald Trump, right from his body language to his red cap, sloganeering supporters, to his hate of anything of color, to his obsession with getting the optics right. Add to that his new best friend, Elon Musk's desire to be the king of space, and there you have it, our fictional failed politician. The problem is, Ruffalo looks like he's putting up an act. And when you compare it to the other performances in the movie, he seems very unserious. Toni Collette as Ilfa is an out and out villain. I don't know what the direction was, but she was overdoing it. She was pulling these very bad guy faces which you see villains make in children's movies, think Spy Kids. Naomi Aki's Nasha sticks. Mickey 17 may be the protagonist, but Nasha was the hero. Naomi's performance is fun and fierce at the same time. She has some action scenes and the most powerful lines where an agent stands up to Marshall's misuse of authority is delivered by her. Mickey 17, the movie, in fact, seems like a spin off from some movie where the main character was Nasha. Which reminds me, I will be reviewing Rekha Charitram next, which has a similar premise. Mickey 17 is a dark comedy mixed with sci fi and existential horror. It keeps you hooked throughout most part of the 2 hour, 15-minute runtime, but kind of drags towards the end. While the whole idea of printing human replicas is very interesting, the story itself falls short of the excellence we expect from a director who made Parasite. The plot is not very tight. For example, we are not told why 18 is so different in temperament from 17, and what was the purpose of Kai's character. I think her name was Kai. I wouldn't be surprised if it is one of those cases where the production house meddled in the filmmaking process and then diluted the whole concoction. What does stand out 100% is Robert Pattinson's performance and those cute CGI worm things. The cinematography is also stunning in some scenes and absolutely worthy of an IMAX experience. Watching it on TV, however big your TV is, 50 inch, I don't know, 100 inch, is not going to be as fun as watching it in a theater. So I suggest you watch it while it's still there and then watch Twilight to understand how far Robert Pattinson has come.